In this clip, we'll create a mini tank using the brushes and other features covered in the course thus far. For Lightbox, I loaded up a basic cube here, turned off perspective, and I'm just going to squash this cube down, make a bit of a rectangle from the profile view. And in the draw menu, I'm going to locate the front and back view, click map 1, next click import. I'm going to navigate to where I have an image of the tank I'm going to use. Alright, and that throws it into our scene here with a bit of transparency as well. I'm going to click draw, and I'm going to make some changes here by clicking flip. And next I'm going to play with the transparency sliders here to find a balance between visibility of our model and the image plane here. I'm just going to line this up with the base of the tank here, kind of the middle part. Alright, and then I got that kind of stretched out for the body of the tank. I'm going to switch over to a knife curve brush and just start trimming away at that cube. Make sure to get rid of those subdivision levels first, and just start knifing away here. Alright, I'm going to try to cut from this angle here. Alright, looks good. Just going to stretch it out a bit more from the front. And next, let's go ahead and click append, add a cylinder 3D, and we're going to center our gizmo 3D. And I'll just kind of move this into place for the cannon portion of the tank, or the hatch, or cockpit. I have no idea what you call this part of the tank, but just get this into place. And I'm just going to use a bit of masking here and stretch the rear portion of that cylinder back some, just to line up with our reference. I'm going to click the gear icon here, select taper, and just taper the top a bit. Next, drag the white cone here to play with the shape of that taper. That looks good. Look at it from the front. Click the gear icon and accept. So now we have that set. See how things are looking here. I'm going to go ahead to the geometry, click Dynamesh, and next I'm going to go down to the deformation palette, and a new trick here covering is use the contrast slider here in the negative area, and you will smooth out your mesh. It's kind of like a different kind of smooth. For me, it works better than the smooth slider, so give that a try. A bit more clip brush here just to line up a bit more with the reference. I'm just going to go ahead and go to transforms and switch my axis to Z and perform a bit of smoothing. I use that contrast and a negative value, and I'll be toggling the floor on and off many times throughout the course. Now just append another cylinder 3D, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, holding the shift key to snap, scale and place right about here. I'm going to work on the cannon portion of the tank. I'm just going to subdivide a bit, give us a bit more resolution here. And now with the clip curve, just flatten those sides, mask them off, invert, and now I'm just going to center it, scale it in a bit, and pull it out. And that's a way to get a nice bevel off your edge. I'll draw a mask out, invert, center my Gizmo 3D, turn out symmetry and center it again. And if you control click the scale icon, you can inflate your unmasked portion. And now I'm just using a green scale to bring it in a bit. Okay, so we got those little bevels in there. Let's go ahead and duplicate that mesh we just created and scale it up a bit, like so, kind of encasing our previous mesh. Let's go ahead and delete lower subdivision levels, get rid of our subdivision levels so we can use the knife curve here just to clip away at the parts that won't be seen. Line up this angle here, and if you hold the space bar after drawing out your angle, you can move it around as I'm doing here. Alright, just about most of the excess. And from the front view here, I'm going to use the nice curve to clip down a bit more. Flatten those sides. Now let's drag out a mask and grab just that edge. Invert. Center our Gizmo 3D. And I'm going to scale in a bit. And pull out, or move out I should say, to create a bevel along the edge there. I'm gonna create another mask and just move this in a bit more. I know the geometry is overlapping in the middle there, but we'll dynamesh it and it'll be just okay. Now with the knife brush, just make sure you delete your subdivision levels. And now with our reference turned on, our image plane, just gonna see what's our next step here. Just looking at the body of our tank here, I'm just gonna use that negative contrast slider. Notice we got a bit of a crease here, so I'm going to undo that. Open the geometry tab and click Dynamesh to give us evenly distributed polygons here. And now I'm going to use that contrast slider twice, moving it towards the left. And now we have the same smoothness on both of our pieces so far. Now with another cylinder 3D appended, I'm just going to go ahead and scale it down into place for the cannon part. And I'm just going to extend that into the base of that other portion of the cannon. Just intersect it. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate and scale up. And now from here, I'm just going to squeeze the mesh and just kind of fit that ring around the base of the cannon. Bit of taper modifier here, like before. Click accept. Okay. Just gonna turn off the floor for a moment. It's looking pretty good. More tweaks to come. Let's go ahead into the draw menu here and tweak our visibility. Just a moment. Next, go ahead and append another cylinder 3D. Go to the cylinder, just move it up a bit, and we're going to squash this really thin like. Move it upwards, scale it down, and use this as the top hatch of our tank. Just set it on top and just get it into position. You can really see the benefits of having a image reference up. I went ahead and duplicated it to create two parts of this hatch here. Just mask the top portion so we can scale it inward to create a bevel edge. I'm just going to move this one down, scale it down some, and make it thinner. And now for this piece, I'm going to move it down into place, scale it down even smaller, and that's just another portion of that hatch there. Go ahead and return our image plane with our floor button. Zoom out and append a cube this time. Just gonna go ahead and move this to the rear of the tank. Let's create this portion here. I think it's like a carrier area, like for holding stuff. Just gonna scale it in. Next I'm gonna go to the skew modifier and just pull on the cones here to just skew your mesh, and that's up. Okay. Now with that done, let's go ahead and use the knife curve to clip away the excess. Alright. A little bit here. And I think that's good. So now let's go ahead and turn on the floor. Move back to the top portion here. I'm just masking off just this area here. Control clicking to blur my mask and then extend it downward and clear my mask. That was just to fill that gap we had there between the base, and I'm softening this mask here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the Move Infinite Depth brush, and with a nice medium sized brush, just pulling it things a bit forward. Okay, just wanted to make those tweaks before we move forward. And just centering my Gizmo 3D, and I select Deformer. I want to make a few more edits. I'm going to drag this cone to add more points, and I'll unmask this row, and I'm going to make sure I turn on symmetry and test that out. Unmask these points here. And I'm just trying to change the front of the top hatch portion here. I think that's pretty much what I was going for. Just pulling the size a bit forward, trying to make things a bit more box-like. but still rounded. Let's go ahead and append another cylinder 3D. And next go to the cylinder and scale it down a bit some. Place it here in the back for that shape, as you can see from the image plane. Alright, now we got that in place. I'm just going to go ahead and move over to our subtool palette and click duplicate and move the sphere here, cylinder that is, into position. I'm just going to perform a taper on it like before. And go ahead, click the gear icon and press accept. Now the goal is to move this off to the side and mirror it to the other side. So I'm going to open geometry palette, click the modify topology tab, switch from X to Z and click mirror and weld. I'm going to click always on that pop-up message, and I don't think we're on the right side of our Z axis. So in the deformations, I'm going to click mirror across Z and go back, and this time mirror and weld across Z should work just fine. Let's perform a few more edits to our recently added cylinders here. Let's start by placing our gizmo 3D and stretching these set of cylinders. Okay, looks good. And now let's alt click to go to this one, mask the rear portion and stretch the rest forward to kind of elongate that. Okay, just coming along here. Let's go ahead and turn on our floor, and now click append and select a cone 3D. Select the cone, move it off to the side, rotate it. Remember, use shift to snap when rotating. I just sliced off the front with the knife curve. So now that shape better fits this cone shape from the reference. Stretching it a bit and intersecting into our base here. Alright, I'm just going to unmask the front portion of the cone. Control, click and drag to kind of extrude and scale. Control, click, drag to extrude. And you can perform some quick bevel and extrusions just like that. Okay, just gonna make it a bit longer here, and you can kind of see how you can develop almost a modeling kind of workflow within ZBrush. Okay, so now from the front, I'm just going to append a cube 3D. Go to the cube, turn off the floor, move the cube off to the side and scale it down. Stretch it. Get nice and long like so. I want to make sure this has a decent amount of resolution because I want to bend it. And right now it's really low. So if I go ahead and side of Dynamesh, click Dynamesh, the base resolution, I'm just going to undo that and increase it to 200. And now I'm going to go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. And then click the gear icon and select bend the curve. Alright, So I want to bend this symmetrically, so I'm going to pull on this arrow here, cone I should say, and test it. See, it works. And I'm just going to shape kind of almost a horseshoe shape, or a arch I should say, like so, to fit the piece of metal going around that, I'm guessing gun turret, not sure what it is. And from the side view, don't try to bend these backwards, they won't go so well. Accept, and we can just bend them backwards using masking, like so. Control click to blur your mask, invert, and I'm just gonna alt click to place that gizmo 3D, and I'm gonna rotate it. Keep in mind that I didn't center it in the geometry, but outside it, right outside it, as a point for bending. So blur, place it, and then bend. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and move that into place and scale it. Okay, we can make further edits once we get it into place if we need, like so. And we know which side we need to be on for mirroring now. Just gonna use the floor, line it up. Looks good. And just gonna unmask the bottom portion here, blur it, and intersect it into the base of the tank here. I'm gonna go ahead and click subdivide just to get things a bit smoother. Alright, that's looking good. Let's go into my brushes and grab the IMM primitives, and with local symmetry activate it. I'm just going to go ahead and undo that. Go into our transforms. I'm just going to draw a cylinder on both sides here, just as some geometry, create as a extension. Okay, center my gizmo 3D, scale it down a bit. That's good. I could have just extruded from the bent rail itself, or you could use the IMM like I did. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and open modified topology. Make sure Z axis is selected and mirror and weld. So we have that on both sides now. Let's go ahead and return to our image plane and see what's next to work on here. Let's click append, click cube 3D. Now move the sphere down and scale it down as well. Gonna zoom in and place it right here where this piece connected to the wheels is. Go ahead and grab my move infinite depth brush and just use this to shape things out. Instead, we'll just use the knife curve. It's just suited to do so much. Okay, now with that shape carved out, I'm going to click append again, another cube 3D. I'm going to use this to create the the other two flat pieces on the side of this portion here. Stretch it out, rotate it to match the angle, a bit more, and just get it to envelop the shape we're trying to create. And now let's open the geometry tab. I'm going to go ahead and click the z-axis. Actually, we have to put this on the other side to mirror and weld. Just going to play with the opacity a bit so we can see a bit more. Now with the knife curve brush, just come in and double click Alt to change your angle and release. Okay. Now let's look and see. Click mirror and weld. Let's go ahead and mirror. Guess we were on the right side. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that into place. And turn off local symmetry, mirror and weld. Okay. Go ahead and turn on local symmetry or LSim. Next, let's append another cylinder 3D. Let's go to the cylinder by alt clicking, moving it, scaling it, and rotating. Scale a bit more and put it into position for one of these wheels, like so. Next, control click and drag any corner to duplicate and place. Again here, and once again here. I'm gonna go ahead and try to center that. Scale it up a bit more than others. And duplicate again. And place one more cylinder here. Alright. We got all the base shapes for our wheels here. Or wheels and gears. More. Now let's go ahead and click duplicate on the base of the tank here. Move it down. And I'm just going to scale it up like so. Gonna mask this portion and squish it in and do the same on this side. Alright, could have did the same by appending a cube 3D, but I just wanted to try something different now. Then let's go ahead and dynamesh that. And now let's go ahead and grab our knife curve brush, and we're just going to chisel away at this till we have the base shape of the center portion of the tank tracks portion of the tank here. It's past the wheels, kind of like a chassis for the underside of the tank. Just squish that in like so. And next we're gonna have to move these wheels to one side. Alright, let's go ahead and turn off the eye icon for this piece that we just clipped. And with multi-select on, we're going to move these parts forward or to the side. Squish the wheels in a bit more. Alright, let's scroll down to geometry, and we're going to open modify topology, and we're going to switch our axis to Z and mirror and weld. Alright, do the same for this portion here. Good. Same for this. Go ahead and make sure that took effect. Alright, let's go ahead and re-enable the eye icon for that undercarriage piece there. Now with our floor back on, we can go ahead and continue to make some edits. Seeing our progress. Let's go ahead and append a cube 3D. And we're going to squash this in, make it really thin like. Alright, place it here. And this is going to be the portion that covers the tracks. Tank tracks, or tank treads. I'm just going to put it right here. And next one, we'll go to Dynamesh because we need a decent amount of resolution to perform any kind of bends. So let's go ahead and click Dynamesh. So let's undo that and increase it to about 300 and Dynamesh. And bend curve modifier. Symmetry is still on, so that's good. And we're just going to curve the ends here, similar to our other reference in the corner there. Let's go ahead and accept that. And just make a few more nudges. Alright. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and bring that to the other side with a mirror and welt. Like so. Okay. And if your mirror welt isn't functioning, make sure you don't have LSIM enabled. Let's go ahead and switch to the selection tool here. Just to isolate this cylinder here. Turn on LSIM. Activate symmetry across the Z axis with radial symmetry. And we're just going to kind of trial and error the right radial count to make this gear. It works pretty close. Alright. So now let's go ahead and move to append another cylinder 3D. Move it upward. Squash it in. A bit more. Like so. A bit more. Till you get a nice brick shape. Right, and this is going to be a tank tread. Subdivide a few times, smooth it out. And then Dynamesh it. Alright. So now we got a single tread here. Just increase my resolution a bit more, because I want to do a bit of mask and move on this. So I'm just going to rotate it. And now, holding Control, I'm just going to draw out the mask of the shape I want to extrude. So just carefully drawing this in with the mask brush. Alright, I'm going to do something on the side here as well, similar to how it looks in our additional reference image. With symmetry activated across the y-axis, helps me keep things a bit more symmetrical. Not super concerned with being super tight, just relatively tight. Okay, control click and drag that yellow square to perform an inflate with your Gizmo 3D. Just perform a Dynamesh. Just undo that and try it at the higher resolution. Okay, that's good. So open clay polish and apply that. Sharpen things up. Now with that done, let's go ahead and rotate the track. Zoom out a bit. Move this to the left. And control click and drag. And don't release. And continue to drag. And you'll create a repeating pattern of treads. Since it clipped the screen here, we got kind of a gap. Let's hide those with the selection tool. Go into modify topology and click delete hidden to delete those extra tracks. Now we're going to go ahead and rotate them and move them down to the area. Okay. And that's generally in position like so. I'm going to zoom out. Alright, click the gear icon, select bend and curve, and we're just going to move this using symmetry for a little bit, and then we'll have to turn it off to place the rest of the points, like now. And I'm just using this modifier to position these treads. Now keep in mind, you can very much stretch these using this, so try not to stretch it too much and evenly space out the dots. So just pay attention to the pattern, and if there's too much bunching up, you need to space out the points. Okay. And don't forget, you can always add or remove points. Okay, just about there. Just continue to reposition some of these. There's all sorts of ways to approach creating something like this in ZBrush. And this one works just fine. Go ahead and increase the points with that orange cone there, and just continue to edit the spacing here. Alright, let's come down here, close this gap just a bit. Okay. And adding those points allowed us to really nail the shape from our image here. Alright, let's turn off the floor. It looks good. Press the gear and press accept. And that's done. And of course, go to mirror and weld, cross Z. Make sure you turn off LSIM, and now we have that on both sides. I'm going to use a knife curve brush to clip the front portion of the tank here, just to match the angle I see in the reference. And I'm applying some smoothing to that clip. And I'm just going to perform a few more edits. Just going to go to the deformation, and use that contrast slider to smooth things out more. Let's go to the Canon here. Just gonna go ahead and subdivide a bit. Next I'm gonna go ahead and unmask the tip here. Next, control click and drag the clip and then scale down. And now we just beveled the front portion of that Canon. Next we're going to go ahead and append another cylinder 3D into our scene. Alt click to select and move it upward. Next, scale it down, make it smaller, and stretch it a bit to make it long as well. And we're going to use this to create a simple hinge for the top of our tank latch here. Mask the top and use a Gizmo 3D to stretch downward. Now subdivide a few times to add additional geometry. And next, go ahead and clip the sides. Make sure you delete your subdivisions first, and then flatten those sides. And now clip a section out the middle, like so. So now we got this portion done. I'm just going to control click and drag to duplicate using the Gizmo 3D, and just scaling this piece to fit snugly inside of our cavity here. I'm just going to place my Gizmo 3D and rotate like so. Nothing too complicated, but something that kind of resembles a hinge. Now from above, let's go ahead and use the clip curve brush to remove a portion. Let's go ahead and turn off symmetry and place it like so. I'm gonna move it out towards the edge like there. And from this angle, I'm just gonna mask everything but this portion and stretch it back just to connect to the latch. Okay, and that'll do for now on that piece. I'm just gonna move some pieces into place, change our proportions a bit. I switch to the selection tool so I can use multi-select, and I'm just going to turn on symmetry, and I'm just going to move these tracks a bit further apart. And now I'm just going to go to each subtool and use the mirror and weld feature inside of modified topology to make sure they are placed appropriately. Okay, make sure you have LSIM disabled while doing this. And I'm using transparencies, helping me to quickly hop between these subtools and see the progress as I mirror. Okay, it's looking better now. To the centerpiece, just gonna widen it a bit. Now let's go ahead and append a sphere 3D this time. Let's go in our subtool list and select the sphere. Move it off to the side. I'm just going to squash it and scale it down. And this will form the base for our headlights for our tank. Now let's go ahead and place it into position from the front here. And let's do the same from the side profile view. Next, let's go ahead and drag out a mask over half of it and stretch backwards like so, and scale downward and pull a bit to elongate, and I'll just squash a bit so it fits in between those rails. And just like that, we got a nice base shape for our headlight. Just gonna go ahead and turn on the floor so we can see our image plane and line things up a bit. Okay, let's move on to the center piece of our tank here. I'm just using the knife curve brush to draw the angle. Okay, now it's much smoother. I'm gonna draw another curve, just tapping Alt as many times as needed to create the curve. And as you remember, pressing Alt will change the direction of your curve. Next, let's go ahead and append another cylinder 3D to our scene. Let's navigate to it in our subtool list. Let's go ahead and move it off to the side. And then we're going to go ahead and rotate it, as well as squash it in a bit. And this is a little bit of a detail that's on our tank in the front section. I think it's a cover for some gears, perhaps, or some other machinery underneath the shell. Okay, let's go ahead and mirror and weld that on the right axis, like so. And just perform a bit of smoothing. Next, I went ahead and duplicated the cannon and rotating it like so. I'm going to use this to create a crosshair, an aim sight. And I turned on local symmetry, and now I'm going to mirror and weld across the y-axis, which gave me the same bevel from the top to the bottom, which is what I wanted. Okay, just going to scale things down a bit and duplicated it to create another section. Now I want the same cylinder, but I want it shorter. So just go ahead and grab the select rect brush just to isolate this portion. I'm going to split hidden to put it on its own subtool. I'm going to hide a portion, and next go to modify topology to delete hidden, and then mirror and weld across the y-axis. Okay, I'm just putting that in a position, getting the right size needed. With the newly appended cube, I'm just going to scale it up and put it into position here. Okay, that will do. And next we're going to go ahead and grab the select or knife rect, that is. And I'm just going to stretch things up a bit taller here, and I'm just going to use that to cut away this L shape here. And I'm going to mirror and weld it, but before we do that, I want to perform a few more edits. I'm going to go ahead and get the knife curve brush and cut away some of this to kind of form the curved. Now with the move infinite depth brush, I'm just going to slide this geometry into the shape desired. Something pretty similar to this. Just going to continue to shape that out. like so. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and place my Gizmo 3D here. Next, I'm going to click the gear icon and add a cylinder 3D. It's another way to add primitives into your subtool is through the modifiers. I just squashed it down and place it into place. Do keep in mind appending primitives through the modifier list does require to mask your entire subtool. I'm just continuing to get this cylinder in place here, and its thickness as well. Just taking a look at its geometry. I'm going to add some bevels, so I'm going to unmask the edges, not bevel it. I mean Dynamesh. Control click and drag to extrude the unmasked area and scale it in to create a bevel. Just going to do the same for this side, like so. Okay. Next, I'm going to control click and drag to mask off that cylinder. Invert my masking. Control click and drag to duplicate and put it into position down here. And this bolt is smaller in size, and that's good. So we got everything we need to go ahead and select our axis, and it's not X but it's Z, and click mirror and weld, but be sure to turn off LSIM. And now we've mirrored our site. Now we're going to go ahead and append another cylinder 3D, you guessed it. And with transparency, I'm just going to manipulate this, looking right through our tank here. And this is to be an antenna placed in the rear. So I'm just going to line it up with the floor while it's enabled. That's the general position. And I'm going to perform a bend in the antenna. I think that's the spot to be in. But before we do that, let's add a bit more geometry so it bends properly. So I'm going to go to Dynamesh, increase my resolution about 400, and Dynamesh. Now with the mask drawn out, I'm going to blur, control clicking on the mesh, and then place my Gizmo 3D, alt click and drag, and then just rotate. Be sure to pay attention to placement of your Gizmo 3D when rotating. Okay, just give me a nice soft bend there. Just gonna clear my mask, reposition the antenna like so. Mask again, and make sure you blur your mask. I'm just gonna go ahead and use the mask curve to get the right angle for this bend, like so, and just like that. Just gonna manipulate it a bit more before unmasking. Alright, click my mask, and I'm gonna grab the Move Infinite brush and perform a bit of small tweaks here. Okay, I think our antenna is pretty much done for. Next, let's go ahead and grab the knife rect. I'm just going to trim off the excess there, just so we can have a piece of geometry to use for our next piece. Just going to unmask it, move it out, rotate it, scale it up. As you can see, the resolution is a bit lower than what I want, and we'll address that in a minute. Now this piece is kind of like the base of the antenna. It's like a nub, and I got that into place. Let's go ahead and isolate it. Control, click and drag to polygroup. And next we're going to go ahead and go to split hidden, and now it's on this on sub tool. And now with the split, I'm just going to hit divide 2 times. Next, grab the circle center clip brush with your subdivisions deleted, and you can clip the size of your mesh down to a perfect circle. And now we'll click rec. I'm going to clip the sides. Next, let's unmask the top of this cylinder, and then just drag it upwards, scale it in, get ourselves a nice new bevel. Alright, now let's go ahead and dynamesh this new piece, and then we're going to go ahead and sharpen things up by hitting clay polish. Looks good. Alright, let's go back to the antenna portion here, subdivide a bit, and then I'm just going to hit clay polish to tighten things up. I think I might go ahead and open the deformations and use the contrast slider to smooth it out. Let's move on and make some more edits to the body of this tank here using a taper modifier. Just want to round off the sides a bit, just a little bit, and then click accept. And I'm going to use another modifier. We're going and click on the deformer. Alright, from above I'm just going to increase the amount of sections here, pulling on this cone. And then I'm going to use control to drag over the points I want to manipulate, and just reposition using the Gizmo 3D. Just going to rotate them a bit and pull them upwards. Just changing the back portion of this, of the body portion of the tank here. Just took another look at the reference and got a different idea of the shape there. Let's go ahead and move along. Just gonna alt click and move my Gizmo 3D up and stretch that piece downward just to fill the gaps a bit. Also gonna edit this piece of geometry here. Just gonna make it smaller. Squish it in a bit and rotate, and it looks a little bit closer to this. Next, let's go ahead and append a cube. Make it all thin like so, to the back, and this is going to form the base for our rear lights. Okay. Just gonna zoom in, place it like so. Okay, now we got it in location. Next, we're gonna go ahead and dynamesh this piece. And next, using the clip curve brush, I'm just gonna turn on LSim to have symmetry across this piece of geometry. Make sure you choose the right axis and draw out our curve, pressing Alt to change the direction of our curve. I'm just going to clip it again, a little flatter along the top, to get the shape I'm looking for. And I think that one's pretty close. Okay, just gonna work on the sides a bit, like so. Whiten it out from the side. And that is pretty much our shape we're going for here. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to adding a little extra detail here. Using the curved strap snap brush, I'm just going to drag along the side while holding shift, and they'll give you a complete ring around your mesh. And then just move that forward and scale it down a bit, like so. And I'm just going to position, and that looks good. Alright, just going to clear our mask. I think we're going to go ahead and squash it a bit. And let's go ahead and mirror this. Turn off LSIM. Open Modify Topology. Select Z and mirror. Just like that. Let's go ahead and move on to another area here. Let's turn our floor on for a moment. And we're going to create this little latch here with the mask. And I'm just going to use Alt to clear that top portion. And just going to hold Control Alt just to erase these edges here. And this is what we have. And since it has symmetry on, it's on both sides. Let's go down and hit Extract to preview it and click Offset. Alright, now we can work on this as a new subtool. Go ahead and select our knife curve brush just to trim our edges, like so. Even the sides as well, make sure they're nice and flat. Okay, and that's what our topology is looking like. I'm just going to Dynamesh at a higher resolution. And next, go ahead to the contrast button and soften everything up. Turn the floor back on. And we're going to create this hinge area here. I'm just going to select the mask curve brush here to mask off the area. And I'm just double click Alt to change those angles. Alright, go ahead and hit Extract. Like before, just going to lower the thickness a bit. Up it a bit, and that's pretty good. Just click Accept. Alright, and you want to make sure you have perspective off whenever you use those masking brushes. A bit more knife brush here. Let's move on to creating another panel here using the mask brush. It's going to use the mask curve brush just to remove the excess here, holding Alt to clear. Okay, let's go back up and press Extract, and that looks pretty good. Let's hit Accept, and let's clear this mask and use those knife curve brushes to clean up our edges here. Just drawing out our curve, occasionally holding Shift to snap to horizontal, vertical, or 45-degree angles. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and increase the resolution in Dynamesh. So get us enough resolution so that when we use this contrast slider, it will smooth nicely. Alright. Now I just appended a ring 3D here, and I'm rotating it 90 degrees. Just shrunk it down a bit. And we're going to move it off to the side where we're going to work on the tank. And there's like these little rings, little holster rings on the side. So we're just going to put that into position using the image plane. Control, click, and drag to duplicate. Alright. Just going to clear that mask. Now I'm going to create the loop that's running between these rings. Next, let's go ahead and turn off the floor, and let's go and click append and append the cylinder 3D. Let's go ahead and move it out, scale it down, stretch it, make it nice and long. And I'm just going to control click and drag to inflate it, and stretching and inflating. I'm just sizing it up to these loops we already placed here, and I'm lining it up. And I think that's pretty good. Right. So now we're going to place my Gizmo 3D like so. Click the gear, bend arc, and just grab this green cone and play with the white cone and just bend that cylinder backwards. Alright. Let's go ahead and click accept. And we got that there. Let's go ahead and control click to inflate more. And that forms the base for our loop. Just go ahead and click divide a few times to smooth out that cylinder. Let's go back to these. Control click to inflate. Subdivide to make it smooth. Alright. And next, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the knife curve brush and clip away at the excess there, just to get rid of it. Alright. Next, I'm going to go ahead and merge down so they're one subtool. Turn on the floor so I can see the other one. Place my Gizmo 3D. And I'm just sizing it down a bit. And you guessed it, I'm just going to control click and drag to duplicate and place. Like so. And if you want, now it might be a good time to choose the right axis and click mirror and weld. Like so. Get that on the other side of our tank. Alright, and we have another pair to place, so I'm just going to change my mask to mask pin, drag over, control click and drag, and move this pair to the front of the tank. Alright, I'm just going to center my Gizmo 3D. Go ahead and choose the right axis, which is Z. let's go ahead and spin or rotate now locally. Once we turn on LSIM, guess what's needed. Alright, and rotate and place. Okay, just turn the floor on, see the placement, and I'm just going to place it here. It's not exactly one-to-one, but it's there. Okay, we can always come back and resize and edit this with modifiers if we wanted to get something closer to the original placement and shape. Alright, moving right along. Just going to grab this piece of geometry here and next move it forward, as it's supposed to be on top of these set of wheels. Slim it down some and place it like so. Okay, we're going to perform a few edits on it. Starting off, we're going to go down and go to the wheels, and I'm going to use the center point to draw out a cylinder 3D using the IMM primitives brush, like so. And since everything is masked, let's go ahead and try that one more time just to get the size lined up. Invert and polygroup, and I'm going to split hidden. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab this portion by unmasking, orient my Gizmo 3D, and slide that forward till it intersects with that cylinder. And I'm just going to push this back till it's flush with that piece. And I'm just going to use this as kind of a round cap. Next, let's go ahead and merge these two pieces together into one single subtool. And with that done, let's use our clip curve brush to flatten the tops here, like so. Next, let's use the IMM primitives brush to draw out another cylinder, like so. And I'm just going to push it backwards a bit. That's good. And down the line, we're going to mirror and weld all these pieces. For now, I'm just going to unmask. Let's do that again. Unmask the very edge, extend it, and then scale it inwards to make a bit of a belt. Okay. Alright. Let's go ahead and clear our mask. See how it's looking. Moving on to the wheels. We're going to subdivide a few times to smooth them out, give them a bit more geometry. I just hit delete lower, and in order to use my clip curve brushes on both sides, I'm going to hit delete by symmetry on the Z axis, and I can clip both sides of these large cylinders. Just going to isolate the small one here, back to my clip curve brush, and then clip on both sides. Nice and flat. Let's go up to the subtool palette and duplicate these wheels. Alright, so now we have a duplicate set. Just gonna stretch them out to make them nice and long, and these will be used as subtractive pieces for live boolean. This is the reason I stretched them out. So I'm sizing up my brush to be the size of the sphere. Well, not spheres, but cylinders. And I'm just using the clip circle brush to clip each of these wheels down in size. And the last one here. Alright. And we can always scale these down if needed. Let's go ahead and go back to the selection tools. Hide that one since it's not a wheel. Hit delete hidden. Let's go up in our subtool palette. Select the subtractive Boolean operator and live Boolean to process your subtractive mesh, like so. If you turn on transparency, you can see everything as well as your polyframe. Okay, let's perform our bevel trick on these wheels here. Let's go ahead and inflate the rest of this cylinder and then scale everything back. Kind of a different approach. Alright, it's looking fine. Next, let's scroll up and Dynamesh and hit clay polish to tighten things up. I still see a little artifacting from that inflate. I'm going to go ahead and use the selection tools to isolate this wheel. And then with LSIM enabled, I'm going to turn on R for radial symmetry and a radial count of 27 that was. So now I can just use brushes like H polish to flatten things out. Just lower my Z intensity and make sure we have this isolated. Next, we'll perform the same Boolean tip on this gear shape piece here. Just went ahead and duplicated it. Next, I'm going to zoom in here and we're going to go ahead and center our gizmo 3D. Turn on LSIM and just scale down and push it out some. Set the subtractive Boolean operator as well. And here's our live Boolean on that gear shape there. You can see with our transparency on. Go ahead to these cylinder shapes here. Select the IMM primitives brush and isolate one of the wheels. Next, go up inside of your transform menu and activate symmetry, radial. On the Z axis, we're going to set a radial count of, let's say, 6. Okay, and we're just going to click and drag out this cylinder shape. Just undo and do it again. You can hold shift to try snapping. I'm just going to extend it a bit using that green handle, like so. And he's going to form the spokes that are kind of inside of the wheels here. Just need to get the proper alignment inside the subtool palette so that they don't get clipped by the live booleans. I'm just going to stretch them a bit from the side there. Alright, so undo that. Something got skewed there. Alright, let's go ahead and push that back again. and stretch it forward and inflate it a bit. Add some thickness. Alright, that's good. A little bit more. And next, let's go in here and find the Dynamesh button. Let's just go ahead and Dynamesh that at a higher resolution. Alright. And we have that shape all ready to go. Let's move up here in our tool palette and duplicate it. And just rotate it a bit just to see what that looked like. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and inflate it a bit more and Dynamesh again, as well as hit clay polish. Preferred it a bit thicker. Now in the subtractive subtool for the wheels, just masked off a portion of the cylinder, and we're going to manipulate it to create a inner bevel by inflating a bit here. And next I'm going to pull to offset, create an edge there, and now this should give us a hint of a bevel on the inside of the wheel. Don't worry too much about the crunchy texture created from the inflate. We can always smooth that out later. Right now I'm just moving and scaling to get the size of the bevel I want. That looks good. Just gonna mask this portion out and use the contrast slider there. Alright. We could have honestly left it the way it was, but now we're not getting that artifacting. Okay. Let's go ahead and control, click and drag with our Gizmo 3D and place those spokes for those wheels. Like so. And just zoom out a bit so things are looking. Alright. See, that's fair. Next, let's go ahead and move on to the base of the tank here. I'm just going to duplicate it, and I'm going to use it to carve a inset to the size of it as well. So I'm just making it all slender like and offsetting it to the side like so. Set it as a negative Boolean operator. Alright, and I'll push it in. You can kind of see it carving into the original base piece. I'm just gonna play with the shape of this a bit so I get things kind of in the position I want. Just control, click and dragging that blue handle to clip part of our mesh. Just grabbing the edge. I'm going to perform our bevel trick here and scale it in a bit. Like so. Alright. See how it looks. Still need a bit of work. Play with the positioning. Like so. And I might need to just hide more portions of the tank here to really get a good view. Let's go ahead and continue to play with that. I'm just going to go ahead and alt click on the eye icon here to hide everything, and then just click the visibility on those two subtools there. And now I can just work on these solo style. And now I'm on the negative Boolean shape, and I'm using masking to move portions. And that piece of geometry is there in full, it's just hidden and carving into our mesh. Let's go ahead and grab the Move Infinite brush, and it's a good brush for this type of work. Just nudge things around like so. Choose a mask, blur it a bit, invert. I'm just gonna push this port down. Alright, let's turn everything back on, and that's much better. Right, if you want, you can go there and add all kinds of nicks and bobs as far as machinery. Let's go ahead and move on with the IMM primitives brush on the inset of that gear shape here. I'm just going to drag out a cylinder pipe, and I'm going to split mask points. And the new subtool had inherited the negative Boolean operator. Just turned it positive a moment ago. Just going to move that in our subtool list to the bottom so it's not being clipped by the Boolean pieces, and position it like so. Okay, right on top. Alright, let's go ahead and grab the IMM's primitives brush and this insert sphere. And before we insert, let's turn on radial symmetry on the Z axis for a count of 5, and just draw out 5 spheres. Alright, and you can continue to place them with symmetry enabled, and just embed them into the gear. Alright, just invert that mask. Okay, this doesn't have much geometry here. Just turn off radial. And just scale that in. Alright, let's go ahead and zoom out a bit. See how that looks. Alright, I think I'll just actually undo that scale and embed this more into the gear, like so. So clear our mask and scale everything down, like so. Next, let's go ahead and apply Dynamesh. Let's go ahead and get this from the profile view here. I'm just going to use that contrast slider on everything. Alright, now let's go ahead and push this back some. Oh, we need to push it back more. Okay, I think that's said and done. Let's go ahead and mirror all those edits to the other side. Open modify topology and pick the right axis, which is just Z. Alright, move along here. I'm going to add the last few booleans to our tank here. Let's go to the cannon. Let's go to our subtool options, click duplicate, and now we're just going to go ahead and scale down, move down in our options here, go ahead and hit the mirror button. Next I'm going to go ahead and turn on LSIM. I was hoping that would mirror locally. It didn't. Just pull this into position. Okay. Next, let's set our Boolean operator on that subtool to subtractive. And with live Boolean already on, we got a nice Boolean hole cut in here. Okay. Just masking out the portion that we could see. I'm just gonna inflate and pull forward and creating a bevel shape for the inner ring, like so. Alright, we'll go ahead and clip this as well. This portion could use a bit more resolution. Just up that in Dynamesh and then clay polish everything, tighten it up a bit more. Alright, before we leave, go ahead and push that in a bit more. Next we're going to go ahead and control click and drag down, line this up with this gun or turret portion, and just jam that in as well. Can always change our scaling if needed. Alright, just gotta make sure that this piece is underneath that subtool as well. Let's just drag it down. Just find it. Here it is. Just drag it right below. And then move in our viewport and it updates. Like so. I truly hope you can see the power of ZBrush in a 3D modeling workflow here. Now all said and done and you're ready to go ahead and combine everything into a single mesh, including your Boolean previews. I'm just going to go ahead and navigate to the Make Boolean Mesh button. This will create a new Z tool that's up here in your Z tool area with everything combined. And I noticed a bit of artifacting in here. Now we do have live Boolean still enabled, and that could be the reason we're seeing this, but there's some overlapping geometry which we can fix by Dynameshing. So I'm just going to go back to the original Z tool with all the subtools, go to that piece, and I can see the overlapping that needs to be corrected. So let's expand our Dynamesh settings. Let's up the resolution. I'll Dynamesh it, creating a watertight mesh. No overlapping. And then just perform the clay polish just to tighten things up. And we'll go ahead and hit make Boolean mesh again to generate a new mesh. Continue to explore and play with features and add more features to your tank if you choose. We'll see you in the next clip.